Okay, fantastic. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining this session. It's supposed to be a short and brief session that gives you an introduction, an idea about what our program, our Masters of Arts International Studies, is about. Before we kick off, I wanted to kick off, as we always do at SFU, by respectfully acknowledging that we are based on the unceded traditional territories of Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. At least our downtown Vancouver campus is based there. And I will kick off the presentation now. If at any point during the presentation you have questions, please put those questions in the chat. Bridget Barker, who is with me on this call, will be helping out. Thank you very much, Bridget. Answering some of those questions as we go along, and then we will always be able to answer more of those questions or the rest of them in the Q&A. Just to let you know, the session is being recorded just so we can share with people who weren't able to make it today. So I hope you guys are all okay with that. Just wanted to make you aware. So you don't have to put on your screens, your videos if you don't want to, and if you want to remain anonymous, you can just put questions in the chat. So thank you very much. So what makes us different than other master's programs in international affairs? I think one thing, perhaps the most important thing, is the fact that we are an international studies department. So we're the School for International Studies. This means that we're not a political science department. We're not an international relations department. We're a department that's multidisciplinary. We have faculty members who come from a host of different disciplines. We have anthropologists, sociologists, political scientists like myself. And that means that we tackle things from a variety of different angles. And I think that gives a very rich experience for those, for students who attend our program. It's a very small program with an extremely individualized approach. We have almost as many core faculty members as we do students, which is really exceptional. If you have in other programs, I attended another master's programs once upon a decade, many years ago, and it was a very different approach. And so here, what you can really expect is to have a lot of individualized attention from our core faculty members, and a very small cohort with other students from an array of different countries. Most of our students actually at the moment in this current cohort are international students, and you guys spend a lot of time together. And I think that gives a very particular experience. So usually most cohorts are between someplace around 15. It can be a little bit less, often a little bit more than that, but it's someplace between 15 and 20. The program is typically a year long, but people can take up to 2 years and often do take longer than a year. But the key thing in understanding, and this I think really does make our program exceptional, is that tuition is fully covered for 1 year of the program. And so if you finish your program within 1 year, all of your tuition will be paid for. Is that correct, Bridget? I see you putting your hands up. I just want to be sure on that.
Yes, that is the first year.
Yes.
I'm just emphasizing. So it comes in the form of a graduate fellowship valued at $7,000. That is the minimum funding that you receive if admitted to this program, which again covers tuition, which comes out to about just under $6,000. So you have another $1,000 left over to contribute to student fees, recreation fees, health insurance or ancillary fees, other things. But do keep in mind you are on the hook for the rest of that tuition following your first year in the program.
Exactly.
Unless you merit further funding, pardon me.
Absolutely. In addition to that, so the main expense that you'll have is living in Vancouver, which is not a cheap city, but we do offer grants. The top students in our program can qualify for grants to up to $25,000, which I think is very important as well. And I'm assuming some of you will have questions about financing, and we can address those either in the chat or at the end in the Q&A section. We also offer professional development opportunities that are oriented towards people engaging in the international arena. And so most people who attend this program, most students go on to work in some sort of career in the international arena. We try to prepare them for that and give them a leg up by putting them in touch with both our networks as well as co-op opportunities. I'm going to get into that in a second. The key thing for people really to look into when you're comparing our program with other programs is, are there faculty members in your program that are working on issues that I am interested in. And so I'm going to give you a quick overview of some of the faculty in our program. The main core faculty you'll see on this page. These are our pictures. Please excuse the glam picture that I put up of myself here. That is not representative of who I am. Let me run through these faculty, because this is really important. These are the people you would be working with, who you'd be taking classes with. And I think if some of these people spark your interest, you'd have the opportunity to spend a lot of time with these people. And so Tamer Mustafa, who is on the top left hand of the screen, is our current director. He is an expert in the Middle East, and as well as on law and society. And so he's written a lot on law and comparatively on law in states. And so he's written on Malaysia as well as in Egypt quite a bit. Gerardo Otero, who's directly below him, is a Latin Americanist. He has written an enormous amount on, he recently published a book called The Neoliberal Diet. So he's written about neoliberalism in the Americas and its impact on health systems. He's also written on social movements. He's doing a big study now on mobilization and social movements and mobilization among peasants in Mexico. Irene Pang, who is to the right of Gerardo, works on labor in China and India. She's a political economist and sociologist. Well, she's a sociologist by training, but she works on political economy as well. Myself, next to Irene, I work on social movements and conflicts in Africa, mostly. I am also the director of an institute called the Congo Research Group. So most of my work focuses on the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but other African countries as well. To my right on the screen, you'll see our newest faculty member, Darren Byler, who is a world-renowned expert on Xinjiang province in China. He's worked extensively on the Uyghur population there and on Chinese politics. He's an anthropologist by training, as is Liz Cooper, who is to his right, who works on African politics, especially on Kenya, and education in Kenya. She has a book coming out on exactly that. To her, up above her, is Brenda Leishog, who works on humanitarian intervention, who works on international. She's a political scientist such as myself. To her left, I'll be finished here in a second, so bear with me. Is Nicole. Nicole works on Central Asian politics and international security. She's a political scientist as myself. Chris Gibbons, who's to her left, is a sociologist who works on social movements in Brazil in particular. He published a book on healthcare and social movements in Brazil recently. And finally, to his left is Catherine Duvarnier. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Bridget?
It is Dalverne.
Dalverne. Sorry, my apologies.
No problem.
And she is also, Bridget, Associate Dean, is that correct?
She is our, she is VP, so that's VP Academic and Provost for SFU.
I just downgraded her there, yes. My
it's
apologies
okay.
for absentia. She is associated with our department, but she's also vice president. Vice president, is that what VPA stands for?
Yes, vice president academic
of the university. So she is also available for teaching as well as for mentoring students. Anyway, those are the people you would be working with, and I think that that's something strongly to consider. Look through our bios, look through our publications. If we address topics that you're interested in, then this program may be for you. All right. What is the structure of our program? This is a picture of our lovely Burnaby campus that you see on the right there. The program typically consists of 2 terms, and I'm going to tell you which courses you would take in those 2 terms. This would be full-time coursework. Our expectation, especially because we do provide generous scholarships, is that people would be doing this full-time. And then there would be a 3rd term in which students complete their final essays or they conduct their research towards a thesis, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit. So the program, you have the option either of writing 2 extended essays or writing a thesis to complete the program. Students also can use a 3rd term, a summer term often, as a co-op to work paid, to gain paid work experience. And so this would also extend your studies a little bit more. But that can be important. People often use this to further their career experience and to tie in their academic experience with professional experience. So the core classes, this is what a typical year would look like in our program. The core classes would include in the fall problems of international policy and practice. That's a class that is supposed to teach you how to write, how to think, how to write. And so Liz Cooper, who currently teaches this class, has students write a variety of different papers: a policy paper, a literature review, a research paper, and an op-ed, I believe, are the 4 papers. And what they do all semester long is just write and rewrite those papers until they come out with a polished product at the end, something that hopefully you would be able to use in your careers later on as well. And of course, all of those projects are focused on areas that you are interested in. Then IS 801 is on institutions, policies, and development. That is a course that tries to understand the politics of development, as the title says, with a particular look at political institutions that are key for development. I believe, Bridget, if I'm not mistaken, that Irene is currently teaching that class. Is that correct?
This or in the spring?
In the spring, I think.
She's doing 2 core courses, and I know it's 8:30, and I think you're right. I think she's got 8:01. If I recall. In
any case, one of our core faculty would be teaching that class on institutions, policy, and development. And then you have the opportunity of choosing an elective course. And that, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Bridget, that course can be either in our department or another department as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do prefer that the electives you take are within IS, but if you happen to find that none of these speak to my research interests, I would really rather look outside and take something with history or sociology and anthropology, what have you. All you need to do is get permission from our graduate chair and the graduate chair of that other department and the instructor of the course. So it's not a big deal. We can certainly allow you to do that. So if there's ever something that pops up, you would just write to me and let me know that's something you want to pursue.
Thank you, Bridget. You will find all of our courses on our website. So if you want to see what kind of courses are available, and this is, of course, a key part of your academic experience, just go to our website and we'll post that. It's pretty obvious, easy to find. Just Google SFU International Studies. But that will give you an idea what kind of electives that we have in our department. Then in the spring, you'd have 2 more core classes. One is the one that I am currently teaching, IS 806, State Failure and Reconstruction, where we look at the history of state formation and then current attempts to rebuild states, rebuild institutions, rebuild states after conflict. And so it deals both with state rebuilding as well as conflict. And then IS 830, which is analytical approaches for international studies. That can vary depending on who is teaching it, but tries to give an analytical grounding in international relations theory. And so the 3rd course in that semester could either be an elective, or if you are going to pursue a thesis option, there is a class that's specifically focused that gives you time to prepare your thesis. Recognizing that writing a thesis is actually a time-consuming process. And so we'll give you an entire class to dedicate that. You develop that thesis with your advisor, and that most thesis involves field research that you would be engaged in. The summer then, so the fall, spring, and the summer, you would then be doing your thesis research, or you'd be writing your extended essays, or you'd be doing your co-op placement. I'm going to get to the co-op in a second. And then for those who didn't finish, then you could use the following semester in the fall to finalize your extended thesis, your extended essays, or your thesis. Now, what is this? So this is a core part of the program. As you can see, the program is basically you take 4 core classes, you take electives, but then you do these extended essays and thesis, and this is a big part of the program. There's not as many classes per semester as you might find in other programs, because we put a lot of emphasis on writing extended essays and writing theses. And so what is this? You can choose either to write 2 extended essays of 8,000 words each. You don't do an oral defense. These are typically done with desk research. It can be a literature review. It can be deep engagement and desk research into a topic of your choice. or you write a thesis. And a lot of the theses involve field research. There are funds at the university available for doing research in the fields if you wanted to do that. This is a much longer exercise. It's 14 to 16,000 words, and you do an oral defense of this in front of the department or in front of members of the department. Some examples of this. Recently, we had extended this thesis by one of our students on police reforms in Nigeria, where she looked at the implementation of community policing in Nigeria, assessed this, read the literature, and then gave her a critical opinion upon that. There was another essay written on Trump's withdrawal from the Iranian nuclear deal, and what implications it had on the regional security. And we'd be happy to provide you with other examples of this as well. But you get the idea. It can be a host of different topics, from environmental policy to international security to a deep dive on a particular country and its dynamics. But obviously, it should be focused on your interest and draw on the expertise of our faculty. The co-op placement, as I said before, many of our students do try to take advantage of our co-op to be able to gain work experience. A lot of this is done locally, so with Canadian agencies or departments. You can see some of the co-ops that we've placed our students with in the past. It varies from the Canadian Immigration Service to the Ministry of Finance of British Columbia. But not all of them are based here in Vancouver. For example, some other students have done international co-ops with the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, Peace Geeks, which is an agency that uses data in the service of peace building, and so on and so forth. So it's really a wide array of different options. You can go again on our website. There are resources to give you an idea exactly what happens during a co-op, and we'll be happy to take your questions in that regard at the end of the session as well. What happens with people who graduate from our program? A lot of different things. They go into a lot of different areas. Here are some examples of this. Daniel Mundeva, who graduated from our program in 2016, went on to work for the MasterCard Foundation, based in Toronto. Andrea Ringrose went into risk management consulting, based here in Vancouver. Jenna Dixon works for, and I believe she still works for, the UN Assistance Mission to Somalia, or that's where she went to work on right after she graduated, if I'm not mistaken. Tori Wong then is become a strategic advisor to the Canadian government on women and gender equality. And Leanne Baumong, who graduated 10 years ago almost now, went on to work for the UNDP in the United Nations Development Program in Haiti. And so you can see everybody's focused in some shape or form on the international realm, or most people are focused on the international realm, but they can work for a Canadian government, they can work for an international NGO, they can work for the United Nations. There's a wide array of different places, and we try to help you with that by putting you in touch both with our networks of alums, as well as informational interviews with people who work in those places. So how do you apply to the program? If the program interests you, it is currently open. It opened in October. And you have until January 21st. And so you have exactly a month, I believe, to finish your application and submit it. If you have lagging supporting documents that you want to submit, you have another week after that. But really, you should try to get your materials in by January 21st. What do you need for the program? If you go onto our website, if you're an international student, you'll see there are additional requirements that you have. Applicants should have a bachelor's. If you're Canadian, you'll recognize this, a bachelor's degree with cumulative grade point average of 3.5 from a recognized university. What this means for international students, you can see on our website what exactly a bachelor's degree is in your country and how the grade point average would convert. I'm not sure they have the conversion on our website for the grade point average, but certainly what a bachelor's degree is in your respective country should be recognizable based on what we have, the information on our website. Can I hop in here, Jason? Yeah, jump in.
Oh, that is all correct. So we typically expect from like a North American standpoint or standard, 3.5 on a 4.33 scale or a 4.0 scale are both good. SFU, graduate and postdoctoral studies at large, has specific admission requirements for international students. that are sort of on top of base requirements. And to find your country, I'm going to just drop the link in the chat. So when you go to this page, you will scroll down to a little part that says international admission requirements. You'd find your country from the drop-down menu. In fact, I can actually just share my screen real quick. Desktop 2. And so I'll go ahead and do that. Thanks for your patience, everybody. So here we are at the link I dropped in the chat for requirements. We're going to scroll down a little bit. This will also have all of the information about English language requirements. If you have any questions about that, you can either click here to learn more or just go down specifically to your country. So Evans, I'm not going to answer your question specifically right now. I will follow up with you later over email, but just to use Ghana as an example over here, we see that the minimum equivalent qualifications for admission to a master's program, that's any master's program at SFU, the qualifications listed are normally recognized as equivalent to a Simon Fraser University 4-year bachelor's degree with minimum overall grade requirements. Those minimum overall grade requirements being this second class upper division 70 on a 100-point scale. So if you have that, it will mean you're eligible. Please keep in mind that eligibility does not guarantee admission to the program. This is a very competitive program. We'll get about 200 applicants, and keep in mind we're only going to select about 15. So just meeting the bare minimum may not be quite enough. If you're just scraping in there going, yeah, I'm just barely eligible, you might want to give a second thought, or at least make sure that your written materials that you're submitting, your statement of research interest and your letter of intent are very strongly written and are very persuasive and convincing as to why you should come study at the School for International Studies. So just make sure, no matter where you're coming from, you check all of this, you make sure that the degree requirements, some countries have bachelor's degrees that are either 3 years or 4 years. We're asking here 3 years honors with majors. So, just make sure to get into the specifics. And if you have any questions or you see something that doesn't quite make sense, or you say, this requirement for the English language proficiency test doesn't make sense to me, I study in English, any kinds of questions like those, please feel free to send them to intst@sfu.ca for me to follow up with you individually. And yeah.
So and I forgot for Bridget, I think there's one screen that I forgot to share.
Oh, you want to go back? Let's hear. I'll stop my share for now.
Right, and then it tells you a little bit more about the applications process, exactly how to do that. And so as you can see here, the steps in the application process are pretty straightforward. You go to our graduate and postdoctoral studies website at SFU. The link is you can see the link right there, and you complete the online application form, right? And so this is the same application form, I believe, for our graduate studies, and you upload the supporting documents, and here are the supporting documents. But you're only going to be able to upload that after your application fee has been processed. I don't know, Bridget, do you know what the application fee is?
Oh, yes. Sorry, 1 second. I do have that on the website.
While she looks that up,
so the application fee. Oh, sorry, it's $90 off the top of my head for those with Canadian transcripts, and for anybody with an international transcript, and that does include students from the US. It's $125. Those Canadian amounts.
Canadian dollars, right? So that's about I think it's $1 US is about 1.25 Canadian at the moment, or something like that. So once your application fee has been processed, you have to submit the following documents: a CV, 2 pages maximum, 1 letter of intent that explains why you want to pursue the program here. On 1 letter statement of research interests that should say what you're interested in doing, what the topic is, why you're interested in pursuing that topic of research. An academic writing sample, and I saw some people in the chat asking, can this be from a long time ago? Does it have to be an academic? Does it have to be from my university? It should be something that allows us to gauge your ability to write. And the more recent, the better, because if you submit something from 10 years ago, you have changed over the last 10 years. And so that may no longer be indicative of your abilities. And so if you don't have anything in the last few years, it's always a difficult thing. If you have, I would try to submit something that qualifies as academic. that is not, for example, journalism, but that allows us to understand both whether you can, how good a writer you are, as well as the degree to which you can engage in academic style writing. I don't know, Bridget, if you have any other guidance for that particular, because I see a bunch of questions on the academic writing sample. Do you have any other guidance on that point?
You saw questions in the chat? Or
I saw a question in the chat about, I think somebody had a question saying she graduated 10 years ago from an undergraduate. Should she submit?
Oh, yes. Sorry, and I
then?
answered privately with that one. Yeah, it's your work doesn't expire. So any work that you are proud of, that you would be proud to share with the Graduate Admissions Committee as something to show off. This should be any kind of paper, leaning towards an essay or a literature review. If you have something like that, the more specific you can get. If you have a policy paper, share that. If you don't, you just have a standard sort of essay style, that is quite all right. It doesn't matter if you graduated in 2012 or longer ago, right? These works don't expire. They're still valid works. Again, just pick something that you are proud of and you think showcases your writing in a positive light. And there's no page counts on these ones. If you submit a 50-page sample, the Graduate Admissions Committee is probably going to flip through that and do a skim, or they might read a couple of pages off the top, but they're not going to read your entire work. So keep that in mind as well. Maybe something a little more brief would be appreciated. But that's free form. There's, again, we don't have any requirements or in terms of presentation. Lots of people ask about font and size. Should it be single spaced or double spaced? Don't worry about those things. You're worried about the wrong thing. If you're asking those questions, we want to see how you write. That's really the biggest thing. This is a chance to demonstrate your skills, because writing is going to be the biggest thing you draw upon. And we've got a hand up from Stephen. Stephen, I'm just going to, we will definitely collect questions just once we're through the rest of the sort of presentation part, and we'll move on to a Q&A, and I'll go back through the questions that have been entered over the chat that I've responded to. So thank you for that, friend. We'll just have you hang on a second, and back to you, Jason.
We're almost done. This is the last page, and then we're
hang in there,
and then be very happy. We didn't want to make this very long. I just wanted to put out a bunch of information that you guys may want to know about, and then we get into the Q&A. And so, academic writing sample, contact information of 3 referees. 2 of them should be university faculty members. A copy of your transcripts. Don't email us, don't mail us hard copies at this time, but just a copy of transcripts from all institutions that you attended. Now, a question that I saw come up in the chat is about contacting faculty members. You're not required to contact one of our faculty members in order to be accepted. Your acceptance is not conditional upon one of us core faculty members endorsing you. However, many prospective students do email many of the faculty members. If they're interested in the kinds of things that I'm interested in, they'll email me and say, hey, can you give me more information about this? Or here, this is who I am. This is what I'm interested in doing. Do you think that this program would be a good fit for me? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so it can't hurt your application. You don't need it, though, in order to be accepted. And then I think there's a lot of international students, I believe, at least on this call. And so there are additional requirements for international students, in particular the English language exam. And you can go to the website that will tell you which students are required to do an English language exam or not. I think the SFU website, the graduate website, has a particular place where you can see whether the country you're in, and it doesn't necessarily always make sense in my experience, but if the country, whether you're in, if the Canadian government, if SFU considers that your entire education has been in English, I don't think that you need the English language exam, but the website will tell you, I think. Bridget, I'm not sure if you have any other information about that point.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just messaging. Can you prompt me?
It's just about the English language, the English proficiency exam. I think the website tells people, if you go, at least I looked this up recently, the Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies website will tell you which countries require that exam or not. If you've done all of your education in a particular country, you maybe not have to do that exam.
That's right. So where I had taken you over to before with the international admissions requirements, there is a section on that page for English language proficiency. So you can check whether or not your country is exempt. Essentially, this is kind of the tough thing we get into. It's not our rules, it's SFU's rules. Even if you studied in English at an institution where the primary language of instruction is English, if you studied in a country where the primary language is not English, you will still have to submit an English language proficiency exam. I apologize for this. I know it's another barrier to application, but it's an important step in the graduate committee's evaluation and assessment of your entire application package, particularly in the international sphere. Again, we need to know at the graduate level that you can, you can write quite advanced, and some people do try to request a waiver. You can try. That will not go through us necessarily, but through graduate and postdoctoral studies. For the most part, though, if you studied in English at an institution where the language is English, in a country where the language is English, you're exempt from English language requirements. But yeah, and then as for required scores, I can drop a link in the chat as well if anyone's looking for that. If you haven't seen it already, it's just on our regular application process page on the school's website. I just have to switch the chats here. So on this page and the link that I've just dropped in, you scroll down to proof of English proficiency, and it will tell you which minimum scores we need for each of IELTS or TEFL, either internet-based test or paper-based test. And some people are disappointed to find out we have a slightly higher minimum score requested for the IELTS modules at 7.5. SFU posts theirs at 7. We really need that 7.5. If you don't have that across all categories, I would implore you to retest, try to brush up a little bit and retest to get those scores in. Or, if this is not the right time, you're not able to test right away, maybe consider applying in a future year. This is a really strict requirement. Our hands are kind of tied on that one. And we really need you to demonstrate the proficiency there. Thank you, Jason. That's about it on that.
I think that's it for me too. So I think we go into the Q&A. I don't know, Bridget, if you want to moderate, and we can, you or I can answer the questions.
Yeah, I'll go back up to the top of the list in the chat. I received a few by direct message. So as long as everyone's okay with that, I will share your questions in a more sort of general way. So we've got, starting with, I applied last month. How much time does SFU usually take to reply to our application? We will announce admissions decisions and contact you in late February or early March. The closing date, supporting document deadline being January 28th. That is when the admissions committee will start reviewing applications, making shortlists, all of that kind of thing. And then once we get down to the offers, that's when you'll hear from us, late February, early March 2022. I've shared links for faculty profiles in case anybody is just joining the chat or just joining the session today. I'll drop that in again. We got a question about, do I have to identify supervisors before applying? And that was answered. Yep. We'll answer it again for anybody who's joining. No, the short answer is no. It's good to get familiar with their research profiles, of course. You want to know who you'd want to work with, so get a sense of that by exploring everybody's little blurbs on the website. You are not, prevented from contacting any professors. If you have a question about or you just want to find out more, feel free to shoot them a message. Again, all of their contact information is on the faculty profiles website. We've got one more here. And I'm sure they'd be happy to hear from you, but if you primarily just have admissions related questions, send them to me. Please try not to, let's say, contact the faculty with your sort of most straightforward questions, because that just kind of clogs them up. They're very busy. They do have,
and we won't be able to answer them.
Yeah, that's the thing. I am sometimes the best person to answer most of your admissions questions, but then when it comes down to research specific things, like, do you study this topic? Do you have any interest in helping me, look at this kind of thing? Those would be good questions for them, because again, you just want to ensure that there would be a good fit. But the process of getting your supervisory committee would happen about 3 weeks into the start of the program. We will have a little mixer, like a meet and greet with students and faculty. We will the grad chair and I will then collect sort of lists of preferences. We'll ask you to rank your top 3 for senior supervisor, top 3 for second supervisor, because you're going to have a team of 2 on every supervisory committee. And then we just try to assign things fairly, trying to match up research interests, but also maintaining faculty workloads. We don't want to, sometimes we do get it where like, you know, one faculty member is super popular in a given year, and we of course can't give them everybody. That would overwhelm them, but we'll try our best. So yeah, be honest when you're indicating your preferences, and if there's anybody you expressly do not want to work with, that would be good to know as well. But other than that, it's kind of an organic process. We will get into the assignments about 3 weeks into the start of the program, if you were to be accepted. I guess we can keep going. We've got, dun, dun, dun. Is there no winter semester? Spring is our winter semester. Just a reminder, so fall is September to December, spring is January to April, summer is May to August. Evans was saying, I hope we'll talk about who is eligible to study the program. Again, Evans, that's kind of it's just, there's a lot of variables going on. So if you have questions about eligibility after reviewing the links and whatnot for international admission specifics, just send an email to intst@sfu.ca and I can follow up with you after this session. Where are courses held? This would be at the Vancouver campus, Harbor Center campus. Our offices in the School for International Studies are located up on the 7th floor here. We do have lots of undergraduate courses at the Burnaby campus. So if you end up TAing, you might have some business up there. We give you a key for the office and you go conduct your courses up there, or tutorials, I should say. But for the most part, your home base will be the Vancouver campus. And we've still got people trickling in. This is cool.
I would just recommend for those who are interested in that question, just use a Google Maps and check out where the Harbor Center campus is smack downtown, right on the waterfront in Vancouver.
It's a really
Burnaby's up on a hill. I don't know, 45 minutes from downtown by bus or something like that. So just check out. Bus. Yeah, it's easy to get to. Yeah, easy to get to. Anyway, check out Vancouver is. I mean, a lot of what attracts people to Vancouver is the city. It's a beautiful city. So check out the city and what the city has to offer as well.
Yeah, and let me see. What are the prerequisites again? There's varying factors, but if you're an international student, you'd want to look at the specific requirements. I will drop that link in the chat again. So if you have transcripts from any country that is outside of Canada, you are considered an international student. You have specific admissions requirements that apply to you on top of SFU's general admissions requirements. Sometimes they can be more relaxed, sometimes they're more strict. So it does depend on what country you are applying from. Let's say, yeah, so whoever has joined from the Galaxy A20s, I don't have a name on that profile. Send me an email. I'll drop that in the chat again. My email address, intst@sfu.ca. When it comes down to specifics of, my Cgpa was this, do I fit? I just need more information from you all. Where is your transcript from? All of that good stuff. Do we have any, Stephen, your hand is still up. Do you want to ask your question now? If it's something that hasn't been addressed in the chat.
Yeah, hello.
Go right ahead.
My question is, during the course of my application, I indicated that I'll be rounding up my MA in the UK by January. So my question is, since the deadline for submission of documents is on the 21st of January, my program rounds up in, I think, the 12th of January, and I don't get my transcript up until early March.
Right.
But during the course of my application, I indicated that I have an ongoing MA in view. And I also spoke with my program coordinator to do me a reference, and she has done the reference. So if I'm not able to submit my supporting documents before the deadline, do I have to go back to use my undergraduate degree or what?
So You should be applying with both your undergraduate and graduate transcripts. We need a copy of all transcripts, from all post-secondary institutions attended. So even if your current MA is in progress, we need to see it. Unofficial transcripts suffice for application purposes. That would be, if you were to be accepted, it would mean you would get conditional admission, meaning that we need you to produce, hand in your official transcript once your MA degree has been conferred. You would not be allowed to start this program if you had not wrapped up. So if that degree is still in progress, by the time you would start in September 2022, we would have to say, no, maybe reapply for next year. We can't have anybody start in a spring semester. Unfortunately, it is one intake per year in the fall. But no, so Stephen, if your MA degree wraps up at the end of January, that's just fine. Even if it wrapped up, in the middle of summer, that's just fine. As long as everything is fine and you've got the degree in hand by September 2022. So again, we would want to see both the undergraduate and master's degree or graduate degree transcripts, especially if they're from two different institutions. If they're from the same institution, normally you can get your undergraduate and graduate printed out on one thing, but you might have to upload it twice. That's kind of an important note, just showing that you've uploaded it for both degrees. And we've got our share screen is done. Let's see, our chat has moved a little bit. Do we have any other questions from the crowd? Can I include citations in my writing sample? Oh yeah, that would be a good idea, I think.
Citations would be, if it's an academic writing sample, you should have citations.
Yeah, if you're indeed, it should be an academic writing sample and there should be some type of bibliography or reference to, the sources. That was a direct message. Let's see, a public question. If my region of interest is in Japan and none of the faculty specialize there, how would I choose the faculty member to work with? So maybe Jason, I'd have you take this. Basically, sure. They don't have to be super, they don't have to overlap perfectly, but we do have people who are able to, they have broad interests and they're able to kind of pivot and look at other regions. So if they're in a specific area, they still might be able to, have the right perspective on something outside of their regular purview. I'll hand it over.
I would say this. I would say that, first of all, the fit is a very important issue. You want to go to a program where you have teachers that are interested in the same things you are. Now, we do have many, as Bridget just highlighted, we have people who are experts in many thematic issues that may be issues that are, you're correct, there is nobody in our core faculty who is specialized in Japan. But there may be other faculty either who are associated with international studies or School for International Studies or elsewhere in SFU. And what we've had in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, Bridget, but in the extended essays, for example, or in the thesis, you've seen people, either affiliated faculty or outside of the school, who've come in to help supervise that as well, in addition to our core faculty. And so, look around and see if there's other faculty who maybe are more experts in Japan and ask them and say, hey, if I apply, or once you've applied, you could then ask them, would you be willing to be an additional supervisor to my thesis or to my extended essay? Is that correct, Bridget? Did I?
Oh yeah. As long as they're within SFU, that keeps things easy. It's a little trickier for us to look at, look outside of the university. So, but please feel free to look at other departments. It is always preferred that your senior supervisor be rooted in the School for International Studies. Like they should be your anchor. The second supervisor, you can have a little bit more leeway with in terms of looking to other departments. We've had second supervisors from sociology and anthropology, from the history department, economics as well, and even once upon a time from the Beatty School of Business, which is SFU's business school. So there's quite a lot of flexibility and variety. There's many a different supervisory committee that you could end up with. So yeah, don't feel completely limited by our core faculty members here within the School for International Studies, but do consider them for your senior supervisors. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything more to say on that. don't worry about, I would say, don't worry too much about your research interests not aligning perfectly, again, with those of our faculty members. There will always be, you know, there's room for discussion, and people are not solely focused on their academic professional, what would you call it, portfolio either. So, you know, people have, if they have personal interests in Japan, for example, or whatnot, they might be a good person to hit up. If they're reading relevant literature, they're up to date with the happenings in that region, they're all valid people to speak with about your research interests.
Yeah, in addition to that, there's a person, Jay, put in the chat, do I need to add the supervisors I'll be working with and submitting my academic or research interest? You know, you don't have to, but it does, I can tell you this, that when we're reading your application, the more we realize that you've actually taken the time to read through to find out who we are, what kind of people are in our program, that will help your application. And so, you know, if you say, look, I'm really interested in doing X, Y, and Z, and, you know, Liz Cooper works on something very similar, and she is faculty with us here as well. So it's not necessary, again, but then, you know, it shows us that you've done your research and that your interests are actually compatible with what we do.
I have a question. Should the research statement be in the form of a proposal or a narrative essay? This is, I would say, I suppose, more of a proposal. It's kind of written as a letter, right? If you've ever had to propose an idea for a paper, a research topic before, we don't have any hard and fast rules around how to form the research statement. But Jason, do you have a preference? I mean, you've been on the graduate admissions committee. You know what you want to see.
I'm actually coming up for the first time for the admissions committee. So anybody who applies this year, yes. I will be looking at your. Pardon me. Again, as Bridget said, there's no template for this. I would avoid bullet points, but again, you know, having a research statement should express, give us the notion that you have a clear idea what you want to study, that you're able to write and structure a paper. This is not a long statement, but that you're able to write and structure a statement like this, and that you know something about this area, right? And so, in other words, it should convey that you're an intelligent, eloquent individual, and that you know something about and know enough about this that you're able to formulate a research proposal. And so that can be, you know, that's the basis. You know, are you going to break it up into different sections? That's possible. Is it just going to be one long essay? That's also possible. So there's no real template for how to do this. Avoid bullet points is what I would say. This is not a grant proposal. This is a research proposal.
That's great. We have a couple more. So we've got, can somebody with a master's degree apply? Yes, we might lightly question why you are pursuing a second master's degree, but we're not going to grill you on it. If it's you're just sort of pivoting and you know you have other experiences under your belt, you're just wanting to add more, we totally welcome that. I believe we have had students with past master's degrees come in before. We are likely going to look for those who do not already have one under their belt, but you are still welcome to apply. I
would just say, I'm sorry, Bridget, I would just say on that, there are cases when people are from, again, you have more, Bridget, for the reason, I'm actually relatively new to the department, which is why
it's
Bridget,
okay, jump in there, I've got something to add on after you.
There are cases that I've seen, at least, for students coming, for example, my area of study, Central Africa. And so there are students who have gotten a master's from a Central African university. What they want to do then is to get a master's from a Canadian or from a different institution. And so we see sometimes you see that. And I think that's entirely acceptable. If you've gotten a master's in international affairs from a Canadian university and then you were seeking to get another master's, that would be slightly strange.
That is more the situation I was calling into question. But no, that's a really important point, and thank you. And I was going to correct myself on this point too. There are some countries, again, for international admission requirements where a bachelor's degree won't cut it. For example, I'm thinking the biggest example is the Philippines. I believe because it's either a 2 or 3 year long bachelor's degree program, we do need to see you also have, you possess a master's degree following that. And that's, again, just about sort of years of education contributing to your degree. Sorry, a little distracted, still adding, we still have some latecomers. This is interesting. They're going to get the very last of it, but we'll tell everybody they can have the recording at some point if they request it. We've got a couple more questions. What is SFU's grading system? So it's a, yeah, it is a 4.33 system. What is the percentage range for that? Zoe, that is a good question. I don't have it off the top of my head. I would need to pull it up. If you can send an email to INTST, I can look that up and send you the link. Can you still apply with less than a 3.5 CGPA? The second question is your application reviewed as a whole? Yes, it is reviewed as a whole. However, because of the restrictions around funding, which again are not set out by us as the School for International Studies, but at the Simon Fraser University top level, we cannot grant that graduate admissions funding, the graduate fellowships, pardon me, to anyone with less than a 3.5 CGPA. So our promise of funding everybody that is admitted to the program is contingent on that. We cannot admit anybody with less than a 3.5 on a 4.33 scale, but we are looking, of course, at international admissions requirements in this, in all of our math. So just because you don't quite have a 3.5 on a 4.33 scale on the Canadian standard doesn't mean that you would not be considered if you're coming from an international country. But again, if you're a domestic student with less than a 3.5, I'm really sorry to shatter your hopes and dreams. It would not be wise to apply. There's, admissions fees are expensive. I don't know how many other schools you are applying to and whatnot, but I will say that the chances are incredibly slim that we will be admitting anyone with less than a 3.5, again, because there are equity issues when it comes to funding and all of this. I won't get into that sort of bigger discussion. That's for another time. But yes, your application is reviewed as a whole. It's a holistic view of everything you've submitted, from your transcripts to your references, your reference letters and your statements of research interest and the letter of intent. All of it, of course, is reviewed as a whole, but we cannot let go of the 3.5 CGPA requirement. And I know that's a tough one, but that's the way it is. So that's a really good question. Thank you for that one. I'm glad that somebody asked. Otherwise I might not have thought to say anything about that, but yes, it is definitely a strict requirement. Again, back to the English language proficiency requirements, also a strict requirement. You have 7.5 in every category except one. We are going to take issue with that one. And again, it is up to in the hands of the Graduate Admissions Committee, but I'm kind of just speaking from general trends that I have seen and decisions that we've had to make in the past when it comes down to, two people who are very, very similar, but maybe one has the stronger demonstration or, command of the English language or whatever. You're going to take them. And yeah, that's about the questions from the chat have fairly dried up. Is there a word count for the research proposal and letter of intent? Just keep it to one page. A 12-point font is fairly standard. Please don't go beyond that. But no specific word length. That's probably going to end up being, I don't know, what would you say, Jason? That one page is 1,000 words? Something like that.
Oh, usually, well, it depends. No, a page is, if it's single space, a page is usually around 400 words. 400,
okay, thank you. So it's much shorter.
Shorter than that. So yeah, stick to a page. I'm not sure we have a spacing requirement. If it's a page and it's I would assume that single space is okay because it's only a page.
Indeed.
But just stick to a page and 12-point fonts, and I think you'll be good.
Are there any more questions to come through the chat? Please feel free. We've got another 4 minutes. We can stay over time if there's lots to get through. But otherwise, I would say maybe send your follow-up questions, anything that we haven't had time for, to that email address. I'll drop it in the chat one more time. But now's your chance. This is your last chance. If you want us to answer live, it's very exciting.
And that's my email as well. If you have any questions you want to direct to me.
If only 2 referees submit their recommendations, can the application still reviewed? Yes, but that's a tough question, actually. The application is then considered complete, but reference is incomplete. And this is kind of a tough situation. We haven't been in a scenario where we've only received 2 reference letters for somebody. There is a nag button in the system that allows you to re-trigger or trigger a reminder email to your chosen references. I would say if you're having trouble getting them to respond, but they've already agreed to you to do this for you, you've had a phone call or an email exchange and they've committed, maybe just send them a note back before the supporting document deadline to ensure that they do get that in on time. It is definitely preferred. There have been years if we have quite a lot of applications that are complete and we have this small pile of references incomplete, they're just going in the incomplete pile. They will not be reviewed because we don't have time. So keep that in mind. It's definitely best to provide 3 references. And definitely, the more academic references you can have instead of professional references, the better. Only your past professors can really attest to your ability to take on graduate level studies. Employer references typically speak to, your ability to show up to work on time and your collegiality and these things, which are fine, they're decent, they're good to know. But again, your employers don't know about your ability to undertake this kind of work. So find your past profs, even if it's been a while since you've been out of school, try to jog their memories, remind them of which courses you took with them, at when. And I've had a question before that was, if my professors have moved on to other institutions since I studied under them, then can I still use them? Of course, as long as they still remember you and you had a good working relationship and they'll provide you a positive reference. There's definitely nothing keeping you from asking that person who's moved on somewhere else. So can the application still be reviewed? It can. I don't know the perfect answer to that one. It's likely it would still be reviewed, but they might get hung up about that 3rd reference. Why weren't they able to find a 3rd reference? Or it's a bit tough. I can maybe answer that one for you better over email. Send me a note and we'll see what we can cook up. Since the campus is in Vancouver, does the campus provide any housing facilities like the Burnaby campus? There's one graduate residence downtown. It is called the Charles Chang Innovation Center, and it's just a few blocks down from Harbor Center where you would be attending classes. We do not help with arrangements for accommodations. You arrange your own housing. There is some, again, limited graduate housing downtown available through residence and housing at SFU. And maybe I'll just pull up that link. Whoops, getting my windows mixed up here. Sorry, everybody. Just bear with me. Even if you Google SFU residence and housing, this will get you to the webpage you need for applications, information. They've got all of their different rental rates for different housing options. So there's that. Alternatively, if you're looking for off-campus housing, the good old Craigslist and padmapper.com are good resources that I have frequently suggested. They're ones that I've used in my own personal life, seeking my own housing here in Vancouver. And something always works out. But I would say this is a really important time to emphasize that you have to have your housing lined up before you set foot in Vancouver. This is not the kind of city where you can land, just get off of a plane and go rental shopping. It doesn't work that way because things are really tight right now. We have a very tight rental market, and if I sound concerned, it's because we did have one student this year. He spent about a month staying in Airbnbs looking for a place to go, and that's not what we want you spending your tuition money on, quite frankly. That's really scary to us as administrators. We need everything sort of lined up before you end up in Vancouver. So just keep that in mind. It's a mild cautionary tale. He does have housing now. And there's lots of homestay opportunities, people renting out a room in their house if you kind of like that idea. Or there's lots of independent living opportunities as well. How does one improve admission chances if eligibility does not guarantee admission? Well, my friend, that's tough. I mean, I would say just really focus on your written materials. the statement, the letter of intent. Present yourself in the best light as you can. But, you know, and have some hope. This, I'm not sure precisely what's, what we could say. There's no one thing, you know, that would improve your admission chances. I think there's admissions are kind of a crapshoot, and it's a combination of your skills, qualifications, your academic background. It's a little bit of a numbers game. It's a little bit of luck of the draw. Most of the time though, we are going to try to do a rigorous evaluation of you as an applicant and consider everything, what you would bring to the program, how you can help our program grow as well. So just think about what you have done in your academic life so far and frame it really well. I don't know what more to say on that. It's a tricky question. There's a lot of variables, right, that go into these things, but just try your hardest and you will get, you know, on the radar. What else do we have? Can you use a retired professor who knows you fairly well as your referee? Yeah, you know, professors emeritus are perfectly open. Oh, I see. And they may not have an institutional email address. Okay. That is a little trickier because we do request that references come from institutional email addresses and that they are on institutional letterhead. And a lot of the time, professors are sending in things from personal Gmail addresses, which flags the system as possibly fraudulent. So keep that in mind. If we see that all of your reference letters have come from the same IP address, we might get suspicious as well. It could be, yes, that all three of your professors are from the same institution, so that makes sense. We would look at that, but I'm just saying, as a word of the wise, there are some fail safes that keep us safe from, you know, admitting fraudulent applicants. So don't be messing around getting your friends to pose as references or anything like that. We will know. But yeah, can I present a reference letter from 2018? It's always best when the reference letter is written specifically to the situation, I think. But if you just have sort of a more general reference letter that somebody wrote for you once upon a time, we wouldn't exclude it, I don't think. I mean, how do you feel about those, Jason? I think
thanks, Bridget. I think if you have a professor emeritus, for example, who's retired from a particular institution and no longer has an email address for that institution, try to see if he or she could have an address from a different institution that we could verify. And so, for example, if the professor used to be at the University of Dar es Salaam and is retired from the University of Dar es Salaam, no longer has an address, but is now a scholar at a think tank based in Dar es Salaam and is on their website, that would then allow us to know that this person actually exists, is a legitimate person, is a professor. It's all of us being able to verify the identity. And that's what the institutional email helps us to do. And so see if they have another institutional email that can guarantee or verify their identity. That's what I would say about that. Yeah. A reference letter from 2018, I think should be possible. I mean, it would be ideal if you could go back to that person, just say, hey, can I just use the same reference letter, but you sign it, then you issue it again in 2021 or 2022. That would make it a better reference letter and make it seem less dated. And so that could help your application. But yes, we would probably consider that.
Thanks for your notes, Evans, in the chat. That sounds like a good idea. I would definitely just go back to that reference and say, hey, I'm applying for some new things. I still have this, you know, this glowing letter of recommendation I would love to use. Are you okay with me still using that for this new context, right? Because maybe it was used for applying for a job as opposed to applying for a graduate program, and the contexts are just a little bit different. So make sure the language is updated appropriately. Other than that, I think that's fair game. And I'm trying to see if there's anything else we've got. Is a personal statement different from a letter of intent? If yes, what is the difference? Well, it is, because your letter of intent is really about, well, why you specifically want to come to the School for International Studies for your master's degree. What draws you to this program? What can you contribute? What are you hoping to get out of it? What are you hoping to give? So it's similar to a personal statement. I think it's just a little bit more geared towards specifics of, of why you should be admitted to this specific program. Why did you choose us, as opposed to, you know, the Master of Public Policy or something over at UBC or the University of Toronto? What draws you here? I think that's really the key piece of that one. And again, it's good to draw on the other sort of research interests, portfolios of our faculty members. You know, is it them? Is it their research portfolio that has drawn you? Is it the reputation of the school out in the world? Is it something that you've seen firsthand or somebody else has told you? All of those things. It's about positioning yourself and sort of, what's a good way to phrase that, Jason? About
Yeah, I would say the difference between, I mean, I think that we're looking for the one-page research letter is supposed to let us understand what you're interested in studying. That's the academic thing, right? It's supposed to communicate to us that you know something about a particular area and you want to know more about it. The letter of intent is about who you are, right? And it's more, you're able to bring your own personal trajectory into it. And what leads you to us, and so as Bridget said, who you are and why this program is good for you. So it's more of the personal aspect of it.
Thanks for that, Jason. We've got maybe one or two more. If a potential falls just below the 3.5 GPA requirement, would you recommend they go back and upgrade their transcript, meaning taking more classes and upgrading? No, I mean, at this point, this is a really tough call because you have already achieved your undergrad. You performed as you performed. We're in a bit of a tough spot as a small department, not being able to offer a qualifying admission. We cannot say, yes, we can invite so-and-so to the program if they take these upper division undergraduate courses to improve and show us that they know what they're doing in the world of international studies. We don't have that ability because we are fairly small and we have limited resources. We have to focus on a graduate cohort that is ready to hit the ground running when they come. So in terms of that, it's a tough one. We cannot really ask you to go back and do remedial work or studies. I would say it might be best maybe to look at another similar program that is out in the world to see if they have maybe lesser requirements. You can, again, this is tough. You know, would you want to be admitted to a program that offers you free tuition for the first year, but not actually meet that requirement for the award? Would you want, this is tough. We would have to require you that you pay tuition. You would likely not receive a merit award, entrance award, if you were admitted with less than a 3.5. The university at large allows admits at the 3.0 level. But again, our program being a little bit more demanding in terms of the writing that's required, everything is elevated a little bit. The Cgpa, the IELTS results, all of that stuff, it kind of all ties into each other. And we've had to become, you know, more and more strict and competitive as the applicant pool is really strong year after year too. So it's tough. Jason, you might advise on that one differently.
I think that, you know, if you go back and you take more classes to raise your GPA, there's nothing that obviously, you know, that, and then you have a higher GPA, why not? I mean, it's a lot of effort for you to go through. What Bridget said is correct, that if you fall beneath the 3.5 GPA, it's a competitive program. You will most likely not get admitted.
We will also look at the last 2 years, or what is it, 60 credits, the last 60 credits of your upper division with more scrutiny, because we know that, you know, in the first couple of years of your undergrad thing, you're still figuring things out, your studies yourself, and your academic performance might improve towards your final years.
Yeah.
So that is also definitely
That's correct. Yeah, exactly. So I think if there's mitigating circumstances, and you should flag that in your personal letter, in your letter of intent. You should say, look, I did a really bad job in my first 2 years of university, but I did an excellent job. And we look at that and you have all A's in the second 2 years. But anyway, so I think that But the GPA, I'm not sure, Bridget, does the GPA, our program, do we consider the GPA for the entire undergraduate career, or is it just for the last year? What's the GPA?
We
3.5 GPA.
we look at the whole picture, but we can, put more emphasis on the last 60 credits, the most recent 60 credits, I should say.
But 3.5, is that for the most recent 60, or is that for the entire undergraduate?
Again, that's tough. It's kind of a gray area. I mean, if it's a little more middling in early years, but you have 3.5 in your upper division, you'd be closer to consideration. I would say that would still put you ahead if you have a strong upper division showing. I think that's completely fair, and that is, I think, what we have on our website. Oh wow, this is a returning person. This is not somebody joining us new. Okay. Okay, what is the size of the class, please? So Jason was saying at the top, for those of you who hadn't quite joined then, we on average have a cohort of about 15. So, but it's important to note some of the undergraduate courses, particularly electives, because they only garner maybe 4 or 5 graduate students, those will often be combined with upper division undergraduate level classes as well. So your core courses in international studies at the graduate level will be with your cohort only with graduate students, but some of your electives will be combined with undergrads, and just something to know and consider. So some of those upper division courses, they might have maybe 40, something like closer to that, sort of like a seminar style, but your 801, 806, 830, those ones will mostly be about 15, so nice and small.
That means that four out of your 5 or 6 classes will be around 15 students.
If I'm currently a university professor, could a valid academic referee be a fellow professor who knows well my work? That's an interesting scenario, actually.
I would say sure. Yeah, I mean, why not? It would be interesting to have a university professor apply to our program, but yeah, basically the bottom line is the academic reference should be a professor.
Yeah, it's maybe preferred if it's somebody that has actually taught you, lectured to you in the past, but if it's a peer who's familiar with your current day's work and whatnot, that should be fine. So again, do I need to contact a faculty member with interest to a research topic prior to completing my application? No, you do not. It's good to get familiar with faculty profiles, but supervisory committees will be assigned to you about 3 weeks into the start of the program if you were to be accepted. Can I self-fund? You will be required to self-fund past the first year, but if you are saying, hey, I don't meet requirements, but I'd like to pay my way in, the short answer is no. No, we cannot do that. Everybody who is admitted will receive their first year's funding through the form of a graduate fellowship valued at $7,000 that will cover your first year's tuition. But because of that sort of caveat, we cannot admit anybody with less than 3.5. Anybody who we cannot award the first year's tuition to, we cannot admit. It's a little bit of the, the quality question, a quality assurance and all of that. We also want to make sure everybody knows that this is a full-time program. You should not envision holding a part-time or full-time job while in this. It will be very, very demanding. We know that some people, they have people to support at home, they're remitting money and whatnot, but we're trying to make this financially supportive enough that you can keep your attention on your studies and you do not have to look outside for additional work. In that regard, we do occasionally have TA-ships and RA-ships, so teaching assistantship or research assistant positions available. Those get posted throughout the year and we just have you apply for them. They're open to both domestic and international grad students. You would, this would be for international studies postings only. You're also welcome to look for work, TA work in other departments. If you have a good background in history, for example, and you see a posting there, please feel free to apply. If you weren't, selected to be an international studies TA, for example. There's ways to get work, but everyone should assume if you're admitted, you get the $7,000 for your first year. And keeping in mind you are on the hook for the other costs. So you do have to have a little bit of savings before coming to Canada. That's another thing. These awards, we're trying to, give larger amounts to people who merit them and who also have some financial needs. So be candid with us about what your financial need is as well. If you say, I want to pursue this, but I don't see myself being able to do this without holding a part-time job, let us know. These are things to consider that will picture into the greater admissions picture. And I heard you say that first year tuition is covered. Doesn't it mean that the program is 2 years? So again, this program can be completed in as few as 12 months, 3 semesters. So if you happen to be able to do that and wrap things up, it's easier to do so if you're taking the extended essays route. If you are planning on taking the thesis route, generally there's an additional semester of research needed before you actually complete your thesis, you write the thesis. So that adds an additional term. That's 16 months. I would say on average for a lot of students, if they're taking a co-op work term in the summer and then doing their thesis research in the fall and then actually writing and defending their thesis in the spring, that's about 20 months. So I get thesis times can kind of creep up depending on your interests. We're also trying to get away from the trend of, we've had a few students do back-to-back co-op terms because they're loving the work experience, but we also have, we kind of need them to wrap up in a timely fashion and this and that. So we're trying to keep it to maybe just doing 1 co-op term, and then you come back to your research, and then the next term you wrap up. So extended essays, 12 months, your tuition is paid for that first year. Your tuition is paid for if you choose the thesis route as well, but it's still only for the first year. Again, depending on your academic performance and where you sort of stack up in the applicant pool, you would be awarded more funds, which could carry you into your second year, of course, if you're managing everything well in terms of your finances. But yes, it's only the first year that is guaranteed, meaning again that we need a guaranteed sort of 3.5 unless there are strengths in other areas, or you can justify why your academic performance was lesser at this time but then improved. We're willing to hear it all. So just put forward your best self and your best presentation in your application package, and I think you'll have a good shot. Is there any instance where the application fee is waived? I apologize. No, the last time that SFU granted any such waivers was during Trump's, I hate to say the name, Muslim travel ban for those handful of countries. And we decided at that time to waive the fee for about a year. That has since dissolved as things have sort of, I wouldn't say have gone back to normal, but they've shifted into a more civil space. Unfortunately, no, we cannot waive it. However, your application deposit, which is separate from your application fee, the admissions deposit goes towards your tuition. So it is not an amount that you pay and it disappears. The application fee is, however. So do be cautious if you think like I'm likely to receive a no, maybe consider whether you want to spend that $125 Canadian or not. What if my referee is only a doctor, I'm assuming professor or a senior lecturer? Okay. Oh, they have their doctorate, but they're not tenured or something. It doesn't, they do not have to be tenure track professors to be your references. This can be any past instructor that you've had a course with at the university level. So no particular restrictions there. Assistant, associate, senior lecturer, junior lecturer, limited term lecturer, it's all fair game. Yeah, there's not much more to say on that, I think. TA opportunities, as I mentioned, yes, both TA and RA opportunities do come about. They are advertised when they are available. You'll probably see some postings come from the manager of our department, Ellen Yap, and there are opportunities both within and outside of the department to apply for. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. Awesome. Thank you, Katie. Thank you for your thanks. I think we're a little bit over time now, so maybe with one last chance for final questions. And if anybody has any follow-up, I can do so with them over email. Do you have any final words, Jason?
I don't. Thank you all for your time. We are really, this is what we do. And having dedicated, committed people apply to our program makes our life so much richer. And so really any questions you have for us are very welcome. And please, if you do think this is the program for you, don't be intimidated by the requirements. Send us questions if you have them, and then apply. You still have a month to do so. So more than enough time. Get the applications in, and we very much hope to see some of you in September of 2022. Thank you so much, and thank you very much, Bridget, for helping out.
Yes, no trouble, Jason. Thank you, and thanks for everybody who attended and your very good questions. Best of luck with your applications. Yes, and if you are celebrating something this winter, happy holidays, happy New Year. Again, best of luck. We're really excited to see your names show up in the applicant pool. All right, everybody, I'm going to end the session. Thank you once more.
All right, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.